Today's episode of the SOM TV podcast is brought to you by Vinexpo Americas. This April 29th through the 30th at the Miami Beach Convention Center is the premier event for North American wine professionals. For 2 days in Miami, the event brings together producers, importers, distributors, and key decision makers from North, Central, and South America and the Caribbean. For the first time in North America, the show will also be host to B Spirits and B No, spotlighting craft spirits, ready-to-drink beverages, and the rapidly growing no and low alcohol categories. Designed exclusively for the trade, Vinexpo Americas offers a focused environment to source new products, expand distribution, build partnerships, and understand evolving market trends across the region. If you work in wine, spirits, or beverages in the Americas, Vinexpo Americas is where business happens. Register now at the link in the show notes. If you're wondering what the state of the industry is going to be in the future and where and how you can get an edge on it right now, you should be in Miami, April 29th through the 30th at the Miami Beach Convention Center. This is the place to get new business and find out what's trending. I'm telling you guys, all of you listening that's in this little space that we all occupy, this is the place to do it. In the show notes is the link. Register for free. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the SOM TV podcast. I'm your host, Jason Wise. On today's episode, I'm going to be speaking with a legendary figure in the California and American wine business, Tim Mondavi, the son of the great Robert Mondavi, but he's got a resume that is just as big. He was one of the first winemakers at Opus One. By the age of 24, he took over Robert Mondavi Winery when that winery was still carving a path through the Napa Valley and making it what it is today. I'm going to speak with Tim about a myriad of topics, including ones like the Judgment of Paris, how Napa has evolved, how we can save wine, and what it's like to be in that space for over 50 years. It's a really great conversation. It is an honor to talk to you, my friend. How are you? How's your premiere so far?
Well, every premiere is fabulous. You know, it's a great way to show up Napa Valley in a way that I think is getting down to the basics. I think Dan Duckhorn came up with the idea of this, and it was a great idea. The wine auction, which my father started, Auction Napa Valley, grew into something that was much, much bigger. The barrel auction is where people really focus on the wines, and I think that is important.
Yeah, I think that if you were to say what the purpose of auction, what premiere is, what is the benefit, the purpose? Why do this?
Well, the ostensible purpose originally was to be a fundraiser for the vintner's operation, such that the auction Napa Valley, 100% of the proceeds would go to charity, and they did.
Yeah.
But then things change. But the real benefit that I think is important is to invite all of the trade that come in, that are partners in promoting our wine, and getting them to see the beauty of how diverse Napa Valley is. If you think about it, it is in this short distance, we have so many different appellations, so many different microclimates, so many different soil types, and so many different people. And so with all of that, it is an amazingly wonderful concentration of beautiful expression of great wine.
Yeah, I find it to be a very good opportunity to drink too much as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh
That's
boy,
true.
and see people I haven't seen in a hot minute.
Yeah.
So that's always good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I think Napa, you know this better than anybody. It's a very small town, but everyone is so busy that it's like you know everyone, and yet you don't see everyone very often. So it's
Yeah, and it's grown considerably. It used to be a very tiny town.
Yeah.
I grew up just across the street from here. There were very few wineries back then, and nobody really thought much of it. I remember as maybe a 10-year-old boy going skiing. I loved sharing the story, going skiing up at Heavenly Valley. And, it'd be a bluebird day. You'd be on a chairlift. It was a two-person lift. It was somebody you didn't know. They were always from the Bay Area because nobody would go there for, they could go somewhere else, right? But
Right.
No, they were the Bay Area people and say, hi, how are you? Where are you from? Napa Valley. Oh, that's right. Isn't that where the Napa State Hospital is? Say, yeah, that's right. Napa State Hospital is there. It's a mental institution. And the other was the Yountville Veterans Home, which is the largest veterans home in the system. And both are things to be very proud of. In fact, I'm very sorry that we aren't supporting those institutions as much as we should these days. But the point of that is that nobody knew what Napa Valley was because in the wake of Prohibition, its historic reputation as being among the world's finest back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. The wines from here were recognized among the very best, but Prohibition did wipe that all out. It took a long time for people to begin to be proud of what this area is like again. So,
Well, your father had a lot to do with that. I mean,
he did.
66 was his first vintage, is that right?
66 was his first vintage. The first winery to be built in Napa Valley post-Prohibition was in 1933, and that was Louis Martini Winery. And Louis Martini, my father had great admiration for, senior and junior, but they used the techniques that were there prior. And so what made the second winery in Napa Valley special, the first winery well after Prohibition was repealed, was the fact that it was all new technology. My father had traveled to Europe, and in fact, that's partly why he saw all these amazing things. He saw some of the worst wines in the world, and he saw some of the very best. And with that, and his desire to be among the very, very best, he wanted to replicate some of the great ideas. So we had new German ovals, we had new French oak barrels, we had stainless steel tanks. We had all these things because he felt at the time, back in 40s, 50s, early 60s, that the worst problem with wine throughout the world, not just California, but throughout the world, was off cooperage. You'll remember that the world was not in a place of richness back then. It was relatively poor, and so many people could not replant vineyards. They could not replace cooperage, more importantly.
So they just used barrels till they fell apart, huh?
Basically.
Yeah.
And my father would also say, it's like the farmer that kisses the cow. After a while, Bessie looks pretty good. And so they would be having these really terrible barrels. That was all they knew, so it kept repeating itself. And even if we have grown so far in this time, and that's why I think that my father was so committed to helping Davis, because back in the day, not only did people were not able to fund change, they didn't know how to change. And I think UC Davis gave us the technology and the microbiology and the understanding to treat things more scientifically, more thoughtfully. Mm-hmm. And so they were instrumental in helping. But then ultimately, gumption and persistence and our own trials really led the way towards great wines.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's absolutely no question your father and your family name and your name, for honestly, now at this point, are just, you can't walk 5 feet without seeing at least innovations, if not the actual name. Mm. I want to ask you about, first, when I mentioned the words "The Judgment of Paris," are you sick and tired of hearing about this event?
No, not at all. Does Tony Bennett ever get tired of singing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco"?
That's actually a great analogy.
It's I think that Stephen did. I know he told me that you would think that that's the only thing I ever did in my life is "The Judgment of Paris."
Yeah.
But and so he shared with me that he was a little bit miffed, not at singing "I Left My Heart in San Francisco" all the time, but forgetting all the other songs that, I'm mixing metaphors purposely here,
sure.
But Stephen did a lot of great things, a lot of education, a lot of enhancement of the wine world, including recognizing Napa Valley and the important role that he played here. But he also played that in many areas, including England, with the wines that he himself developed there. So he was a force for good in many areas.
Yeah, he was, believe it or not, Stephen was one of the first times I ever had a Virginia wine. Mm. And not only that, he tasted me on probably 10 or 12 Virginia wines in England. I was in Dorset at his house.
Yeah.
And I had not really had many Virginia wines prior. And so it's just, that was him. He was always, he was always like, listen, let's try something that people aren't thinking of. And I think, obviously, that was Napa. Sure. So what I wanted to ask you about, because I don't know how you'll answer this, but I think that nobody is better positioned to re-relegate the Judgment of Paris. Let's say you and I were to say none of the wines that were in it are allowed to be in it. We're going to redo it.
Mhm.
And after we pick some wines from Napa that are going to be the new ones, what region, if Napa is now Bordeaux, goes against Napa around the world? So I
Oh,
want to
goodness.
have this conversation with you.
Okay, well, I'm going to answer a question you didn't ask, but I would also say that Bordeaux has many subparts. So I am now I'm starting to beat my own horn and move away from the question you asked me, self-serving as I am here. After being at Robert Mondavi and being responsible for the wines for 30 years at Tocolon, and then now being up on our Sage Mountain Vineyard, it's a different world. Pritchard Hill is a different world from where Tocolon is. I think that there's a lot of evolutionary reasons why the Médoc is so different from Saint-Emilion, as an example.
I just more mean in reputation, not in quality. Because now Napa, if you say Napa, like remember you're saying it was this Napa State Prison. Now people are like, oh well, Napa's great wine.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like
Napa, and
immediate.
it's also great food.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thomas Keller and Sally Schmidt before him.
Sure.
The Italian immigrants, people like my grandparents. The food here was fabulous always because it was the immigrants. And for here, we at least within my lifetime, the Italian immigrants that loved great food, they loved great wine. But that's the foundation of Napa. But what I'm advocating, though, is to deepen the understanding of the different appellations within Napa Valley.
Sure.
And to see that the soil type of say, Pritchard Hill is so different from the soil type of Tocolon, and the temperatures are so different, and the adaptability of the different varieties are very different as well. Merlot has gotten a bad reputation in much of Napa Valley floor. There are some standouts historically. Duckhorn did a great one. Three Palms Merlot
yeah, very famous.
was outstanding a long time ago. But the majority of it are not all that great. But I think there are two reasons. It's not just temperature. The valley floor is much hotter in the afternoons than is the areas of high in the mountain and the elevation, higher areas. But also the soils are very different. So I would advocate that we further understand those differences. We have a long ways to go still in understanding what are the grape varieties that do what we're still evolving.
Yeah.
It takes 10 to 20 years to discover a region. I think up at Continuum, we are still discovering that. And that's why Continuum and Novicium are great names for us, because we're still the novices of this property.
Right.
And we will evermore be in continuum of pursuing those nuances of interest.
Yeah.
But that's the fun of it. We have not yet arrived at perfection. Thank goodness. It's not here. It's not on Earth. It doesn't exist on Earth. And hence, that's the fun of it, to be able to continue to get ever closer.
Do you mostly drink Napa wine? Would you say that is the majority of what you drink?
It's probably the majority of what I drink. At the same time, I love great wines of the world.
Sure.
I love great wines of Italy, of different regions. Etna is an emerging, it has emerged big time.
Oh, yes.
But I've been fond of it for a long time. Of course, Montalcino, where we had stakes in the ground, so to speak, with Luce and Marchese Frescobaldi, which were really wonderful. And Ornellaio, all of that was experiences that I've loved. And yeah, so I drink a lot of wines from all over the world.
Okay. Well, so then you're perfect. I'm going to keep pressing you.
Oh.
If you're Steven Spurrier,
Okay.
what 8 or so wineries do you pick from Napa?
Well, I'm not going to fall into that because I really don't know. You are in a better position to do that. You are in a better position because I have all kinds of historic biases.
Well, but even take them in. Take the historic bias.
It is hard for me to pull them out, but I do think that there are wines of elegance and finesse that is coming back into style.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people misunderstand how that evolved, but phylloxera is the biggest culprit in my view, and people don't really think about that as to what happened post the replanting, post the second phylloxera of Napa Valley. But that's the reason but that's, again, not the question you asked.
I'm just trying to think as a fun thought experiment. Somebody who
Yeah.
does have so much baggage with and reverence and friends and
Sure.
history.
Sure.
Could you go, if there's eight wineries here that are going to represent Napa on the world stage one more time?
Well,
Who would it be? Who would you pick?
I think it'd be fun to try to go back to and have a side by side some of the old standards
Yep.
that have been around, and also then see some of the new ones that are coming along. I think Ridge was in that original tasting, I believe.
Oh, yes. Yep, Paul
and
Draper.
I
Yep.
think that they. Sorry that Paul would not be there to create a brand new wine now.
Yeah.
It would be fascinating to have Paul develop a new wine right now to see what it would be. But he had a style that was studied, that was thoughtful, and such a great value back then
Oh, my God.
for in wines of complexity, classic. But there are a lot of great wines, and I.
Would you do Cabernet still, like Stephen did? Would you do Chardonnay?
Sure,
Yep. Okay.
sure. But I would also evaluate for this. What I would advocate for Napa Valley is that it do a varietal evaluation across in different areas, because I do think that we are still evolving in the understanding of that. The hillside vineyards are different. The viticultural practices you need up there are very different from the valley floor, and we have the extra added curveball of global warming, which says you do need to take the things that we do with vines, with wine, and evaluate it with an intent of producing the very, very best. And some of the regulations of the past that were formed at a time when climate was normalized. Climate has never been normalized, but now it's extreme. Global warming has made Mother Nature quite angry at us, and for good reason. But it's on steroids now. And so the wine grower's role, particularly, is a more challenged role. And I think that the regulations need to be reevaluated. And I'm not speaking as much in Napa Valley. We are blessed to be able to have more latitude to do what we think is the right thing. But I'm thinking of areas like in northern Italy or in France, where irrigation is verboten. I think that that's unfortunate. I think that certain areas, I think the industry has evolved such that the people should have latitude to pursue the very, very best. People understand the consequence of excess. So I think protecting against excess, which is what the ban on irrigation was historically, I think ought to be rethought, because I think it is holding back some of the areas. My favorite vintages in northern Italy tend to be the wetter vintages, where the vines don't go into as much of a stress. And by being in Tocolon, where I felt that the best wines that we made there were countering excessive vigor of the soil. And we were able to do that. High density planting came along, cover crop came along, managing of the vine itself came along, attracting older vines. All of those things tend to move in the right direction for great wine. Up in the hillsides, it's a little bit different. There, we have to encourage proper cover crop for invigoration of the soil, better tilth, better water holding capacity. And I think that irrigation also is an important tool. If you max out at 3 tons per acre, as we do up there, that's not an abuse, but it is coping with the vagaries of Mother Nature. So I would be more open-minded and trust in people's desire to produce the best. If we allow people to do that, I think particularly in the face of global warming, and I'm speaking more for other regions, but some things have a bad reputation based on traditions that are a bit outdated and perhaps out of place also. I'm a huge believer in site-specific farming and respecting the differences that people choose to do. And that's, after all, why America and California, Napa Valley, has advanced so rapidly in such a short time, because we were able to try all kinds of stupid, crazy things that people would say, you can't do that. And I say, oh my God. And then 20 years later, everybody's doing the same thing because it made better wine. It's better for quality. It's better for health. It's better for what keeps the clock ticking.
But there is a nice through line to the wines you can find here. It's not just chaos. It's not like,
Right.
there's not 1,000 varietals growing here. It's not like one person's doing completely different things, but there's a standard, but there's still some experimentation here.
Oh, absolutely,
You
there
see
is.
it. And
There is. Oh, absolutely. But I'm speaking more for some of the other areas.
Yeah.
And some of the preconceived notions from other areas that are deployed here. So I would say that fundamentally, let good people go out and do the best they can.
yeah, well, I wish you were my boss. That sounds great. So who are some of who are some of the most talented winemakers around the valley working right now?
Oh, golly. I used to be more conversant with all the people that are out there. But I would say that, I know Benoit from Realm. I've known him for a long time and appreciate his dynamic, his curiosity, his energy.
Yeah.
Julian Fayard.
Yeah, Julian's great.
All the people that we know and many of the people we don't know as well. But I think that there are other people you could ask that are probably more tuned into it than I am. And that's the fun. That's the fun of it. There's always something new.
Yeah. Play out the next 10 years here for me, as far as like what people are growing, kind of the market, all sorts of things. I'm just curious. You are one of the few people who has seen the ups and downs, the real highs, I'm sure some lows.
Sure.
And right now, some people are panicking. Some people think it's fine. And I'm just curious, like you having gone through all this stuff, what's it like in 10 years here?
Oh, golly. Well, speaking of what's going on right now,
Sure.
there's a lot of reason for a lot of people to be panicking. The slowdown in the market is absolutely devastating for many people. It's hard on everyone, I believe. I don't know anyone who is benefiting from this downturn, and anyone in the wine industry that's benefiting from this downturn. But I do think that authenticity will prevail. I appreciate the fact that we are authentic. We've always wanted to over-deliver, and we've always wanted to be able to have wines of value. That is another word that I think that will become authenticity, value, excellence. Those are three words that I think are our bylines, and I believe that they will prevail. But many of the vanity operations that have come in where people do extremely well in another field and that are just here because it feels good, there's more. There has to be a deeper passion, a deeper cultural commitment to wine. So we're gonna lose a lot of people. The other thing too is that many people are relying on different types of financial support. It used to be it was just families that were crazy enough to make wine their passion and their living, but perhaps it's going back to that. Perhaps it's going back to that the people that are really committed to it are going to be here. They will be here, but it's more than just finance. It's a question of way of life. And some of the underpinnings of it, I was just on the plane. Many people do not have time for family meals any longer. Their kids are in school. They are in this sport. They're in that activity there. And so the family meal is less common. And so and after a meal, then they've got to dash off to get their kids to something else. I think that is changing the way of life. And I think that's a bigger change than, say, cannabis or other things. There are fundamental changes, but ultimately, the importance of a meal and the celebration of a meal and the sanctity of a meal will be there. It's just that I think that is why younger people in America don't have time for sitting down and sharing a nice meal and then relaxing afterwards. But that will come back. It will come back as people get older, because I do believe that the sharing of a meal is the single most important social institution in life. It's where you share your hopes, your dreams, your aspirations. You nourish your body. And with a nice bottle of wine, you elevate your spirit. Yeah. Why not? And bring people together. The social aspect of wine can't be understated.
Yeah, it's certainly gotten a few people to like me more than they should have. I think it's really important what you're saying, honestly, and I want to go back into that. What do we lose if we're not sitting and eating and breaking bread with each other, aside from just passing knowledge? I mean, what's the other thing? What are we losing here? Because I've had dinner with you, and you are a wonderful cook, and it's an experience. I would recommend anybody listening, if you can have dinner with Tim and Dobby, you should do it. But what do we lose? Because I mean, this is an important thing I do with my kids. I force them to sit down.
I think it's good.
We cook and we talk.
I think it's very important.
Yeah.
To fundamentally, I think it is a visceral way of connecting to nature. The crops we raise, the care we take in nourishing one another, nourishing our spirit. Fundamentally, nature needs to be recognized and protected. And if we get away from noticing quality of food, I think then the farther we get away from protecting nature. If right now some people, to be unnamed, don't believe in climate change, they are so insulated from nature. There's something basically wrong with that. And I don't know, I think if you think about it, some of the most important things, it all has to come from nature. And ultimately, great wine is a thoughtful reflection of the best of nature.
Look, it's not easy to make money in wine. I mean, I think you know this very well. I think everyone knows this. You have to have a lot of luck, a lot of guts, a lot of other things that have to go right. And then you have to have a really good product. And so you had mentioned earlier that, the Valley's makeup might change, a lot of what quote unquote vanity projects. Do you think that will make wine better? Because I won't name names, but there are a lot of people from the tech sector and telecommunications and places where they have a lot of money and they've started very beautiful, humongous wineries here. And some of them are not doing well.
Yeah.
I won't name names.
Well, I think that over time, there are ups and downs, obviously. At the same time, quality does persist. And it is important to be involved in things for the right reasons. If you love it, you're bound to notice things more deeply. You're bound to notice and try to figure out how can we replicate the best of that? How do we avoid the negatives? And that takes reflection. It takes time. It takes persistence. And a lot of people aren't into that. And the more distant people are from actually touching the dirt, that's a harder thing. Was it Jefferson that said all people should be farmer to keep them humble, but also to just appreciate the beauty around us.
That's very well said. Can you think of throughout your career and up to where you are now, a few bottles you've had that really changed you or made you feel like you are in the right profession? I mean, just off the top of your head, I know it's a tough question.
Yeah. Well, there are many. Of
course.
There are many. But I grew up and I had wine in utero. So, there have been a lot just down the way over there.
Some amniotic wine, yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think that coming from Napa Valley, historically, the dream of Burgundy was something that was absolutely amazing. And the wines of, DRC, but also I had a number of opportunities to talk with Henri Jaillet, both in his cellar as well as down in a tasting that Martine Saunier did in L.A. And then he came up to visit us at Robert Mondavi when we were back there so many years ago. But I think that his wines were so amazingly expressive and pure. And because the wines of Napa Valley post-Prohibition were flogged about the head and shoulders in the name of repressing faults, the only wines that made it through were the very stout wines. Cabernet was able to make it through, but Pinot Noir being tender and requiring just the right site and then a gentle hand, it was probably as far from the historic winemaking of Napa Valley. And so Pinot Noir and Burgundy helped lead the charge for us. It was the canary in the coal mine, so to speak. And I believe that Pinot Noir is demanding of the right site. It's demanding of a gentle hand. Cabernet doesn't demand it. It just loves it. It just loves it. So it too shows sight. It too shows tenderness. But that has to be something that you And that's what I did at Robert Mondavi, to learn about Riesling from Chenin Blanc, to learn about Chardonnay from Sauvignon Blanc, to learn what are they like and what are they not like? What are they different? So how is Pinot Noir different from Cabernet Sauvignon, and what do they want? And then to mix and match. It's not just doing what Bordeaux does that makes Cabernet right, or doing what Pinot Noir, what Burgundy does to make Pinot Noir right. It's a question of evolving that. And so our techniques are what I get to consider are the best techniques to bring out the best of each individual variety in our site. Ultimately, that's what a great wine should be, honoring one's own site in a way that you believe is the very best.
Yeah, that's quite a task, though.
Well, thankfully it's never ending.
Yeah, that's right. It's job security. You always have work to do.
Yeah. I don't think AI is going to threaten that. The probes aren't going to be refined enough yet.
No, I mean, AI might change the way we sell wine or something like that, but I don't think wine's too analog a product for.
Well, it takes too many sensors to technology. It'll take a long time to catch up with that.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing too. People may want to use AI to shorten things like entering data and, all of that, because that's boring and not fun to do. But drinking wine is wonderful to do. You don't really want that to be done for you.
Yeah, it might rust the computer too. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, good. Let's keep it that way. This is a real pleasure. I love talking to you, and you have a lot of incredible insight in this, and I want to congratulate you on 50 years now you have been?
With the 2023 vintage, it's my 50th harvest being in charge of my family's wines. Yeah, I started in 74, and it's ironic too. 74 was a great year in Napa Valley. I remember it vividly. It was a late season, relatively cool. There was a little bit of a rain, and all the forest floor in To Kalon all the grasses were germinated, and my father kept things out longer. And that wine was amazing. It was a large crop, and interest rates were through the roof at that time. They were like 20%. And you can imagine an 8-year-old winery with all the borrowing that was against it. Bankers took a lot of interest, not in the quality, but in the volume that was there. And they said, Bob, sell that stuff. And my father said, like hell. And Larry Romano, who was my father's sales manager at the time, or prior at Charles Krug, and had his own distribution company in San Francisco, said, Bob, why don't you just do out in the marketplace what you do at the winery all the time? Compare your wines to the first growths. And so that's what we did. And I got to trot it out. I was trotted out as the winemaker and would present our wines with blind with the first growths of Bordeaux. We would do that 5, 6, 7, 8 times a year, every year for quite a few years. I loved it. I got to know those wines rather well, meaning the first growths. And so they were always very important to me. But it was fascinating to see their evolution over time too. They change. A lot of people say, "Oh my God, it's so remote," and so that they are always. Well, no, that's not true. The more you know something, you know its virtues, but you also know some of its faults too. And so it's and that's the fun of it. That's the fun of it. So never stop learning.
What an interesting thing to start your first vintage in a good year. That's very nice to have that happen.
And then have the 50th one be a fabulous year also.
Yeah.
Similar, cool, late, and everybody is buzzing about it. I am so delighted. I believe the 23 vintage will be part of the resurgence to interest and excitement for Napa Valley.
Yeah. Before we end this, I want to ask you a question. As I think the trade and everybody kind of jokes that Napa, whenever you ask any winemakers, how's the vintage going to be? They always go, "Oh, it's perfect. Every year it's better.
Vintage of the century.
It's the best vintage of all time." Whereas if you're in Lalande de Palmeral or something on the right bank of Bordeaux, they'll go, "Oh, this vintage is shit." They'll tell you honestly, they're like, this one was terrible. So I'm wondering
until about a year and a half later, and then they say, fabulous.
Exactly that.
I do that. Oh my goodness. After a wine comes in, I say, oh my God. And because the wines also kind of go through a dumb phase when they're very early on.
That's true.
They're all heels and toes. And then time in barrel civilizes them. They grow up. They shed some of their lethargy. They shed some of their angularity, and all of a sudden their perfume comes out. And you say, "Wow,
Yeah.
what a trend! Why was I so worried?"
No, and that is very true. But can you just spell the myth for me once and for all that there are actually some not perfect vintages in Napa, please?
Well, I will tell you that there has not been one perfect year yet.
Okay. Always careful. Always.
Yeah, no. It's just I don't believe in perfection. And if you think about it, isn't that the beauty of it?
Yeah.
Isn't that we're lucky that nobody's got a corner on the market?
That's right. That's right. Well, Tim, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
man.
well, thank you for doing this. You
Good
know,
stuff.
we can produce great wines, but unless, it's like a diamond. You have to have the light shine on it. So, Jason, thank you for doing what you do. It's very important to the industry. It's very important for all of us that love good food, good wine. So, thank you.
Thank you, my friend. I want to thank everybody for listening. It really means a lot. I want to remind all of you that on SOM TV, we have lots of new episodes, including a brand new Behind the Glass in Casa Madera, which is the oldest winery in the New World. And of course, we have our Judgment of Paris film, our long-awaited Judgment of Paris film coming very soon to SOM TV. So go to somtv.com to subscribe. That's what supports us and keeps this stuff going. And if you love this podcast, please give us a great rating or a review wherever you listen. I want to thank my producer, John Adams. I want to thank Tim Mondavi for his time. And I want to thank all of you for listening. Everybody go have a great glass of wine and be safe. We'll talk soon.